Hi, this is Ruth Pierce. I'm the Relationship Maximizer, and we're going to finish our sessions, our 5 sessions. So this is the 5th one on planting transformational seeds through the 5 principles of thriving relationships. On the first one, let's do a quick review. First principle is to love and value yourself. Number 2, know what you believe about yourself, others, circumstances, and if you're a person of faith, God, because what you believe affects your world and what you can do. And the third one is to focus on the root issues. That's where the expectations of the relationship are. And if those are met, then you're going to have positive symptoms. If those aren't met, then you're going to have negative symptoms. And that even includes the relationship you have with yourself. Are you meeting the expectations that you have for yourself? And if you're not, figure out why. And then the fourth one is relationships fit into 3 different categories or 3 different columns: dependency, independency, and interdependency. And if you're too dependent on a relationship, then you're not going to address the things that need to get addressed. You've got to move first to independence, where you know that you could survive and even thrive without that relationship if you needed to, because then you'll be willing to address what needs to be addressed. And then ideally, when the other person is ready, when they've reached that sense of responsibility and ownership and that independence, then together you can work together for interdependency, where you know that you could survive and thrive on your own, but you know that life is better together, it's more fun, and you can go further. So you go for interdependency. And if you need a review on any of these, check out the last videos about each of these. The one we're going to talk about today is the 5th one. And it depends on where somebody is on the foolish to wise continuum, how the best way to treat that relationship. Because everybody is on a continuum, or pretty much everybody, between being foolish and being wise. And that includes ourselves. And we're going to talk about that today. And by the way, Proverbs, the book of Proverbs, is the one that talks about people being evil, wise, and foolish. There's 3 different categories. And a lot of this information that I got today, I got originally from Dr. Henry Cloud's Necessary Endings. And he does a good job articulating, speaking out on what these 3 different categories are. So I want to talk first about, I'm going to give you a definition so you kind of know where we're going with this. And then we're going to circle back around and dive deeper into them. But the evil person, we're going to talk about it first because it's kind of all by its own and it's not in that continuum. And sometimes it's hard to know which one a person is, and you have to get to know them before you can really say. And sometimes they're have some of the characteristics just in parts of their life too, especially between the wise and the foolish. But let's go back here. And let's talk about the evil person. The evil person, I'm going to get my notes here, intentionally tries to hurt you. They want to bring you down. They want to hurt your loved ones or your company. They are not reasonable. These are the ones that you wished you never had hired. I'm putting on my HR hat right now. And it's time to terminate employment now before they do any more damage. These are the ones that you should have never allowed in your personal life. Think restraining order. That's the evil. And most of us are not dealing with evil people day on the day basis. Some of us are. If you're in an abusive relationship of any type, then you need to think about that. But we're going to focus a lot on the foolish and the wise. And we're going to talk about the characteristics. But I want to say, in summary, before we even begin, so you can watch for this, is the wise person, the wiser you are, the more you accept responsibility and the more you're open to feedback. The closer you are to the foolish side, you are not open to feedback and you do not accept responsibility. The wise person, like I just said, is open to feedback. If the feedback is true and it's presented in a good way or manner, they will receive it without becoming defensive and make the necessary changes, embracing it as a positive. They also take responsibility for their behavior without blaming others or making excuses. They take responsibility without condemning themselves. This is key. Without making themselves all bad. They do not look at it as a failure, but as a learning opportunity. They recognize that learning is a process and they celebrate how far they've come, while at the same time keep moving forward. So they celebrate those baby steps and say, yeah, I celebrate those, but I'm not going to stay here. I'm going to move forward. They do not allow this mistake or failure to make them fall backward. It's mistake, failure, learning opportunities. It's all in the words you use, isn't it? Your relationship with this person that you're giving feedback to will strengthen the relationship. It will not hurt it. Wow. So key points, aren't they? I've got one more for you. These are the wise people. If you are in a supervisor role, I'm putting on that HR hat again. The wiser your employee is, the more freedom you can give them to manage themselves. Wise people, the wiser you are, the more you're open to feedback because you want that feedback in order to grow, and you take responsibility for your behavior and your actions. The foolish person, we're on the flip side now, does not accept feedback well. In fact, in most cases, they reject it. Rather than accepting responsibility, they are likely to blame others and make excuses. Been on the receiving end of that? Have you ever done it yourself? They are never wrong. In their eyes, they are the victim. While the wise person adjusts his behavior when he hears the truth, the foolish person tries to adjust the truth so he does not have to adjust to what he's hearing, the feedback, the truth. Giving feedback to a foolish person seems hopeless at times, and sometimes it is. The foolish person may be very talented and charming, making it hard to give up on them, and we try just one more conversation. And I've found that true whether it's professional relationships or personal ones. Often attempting to talk with the foolish person about a problem creates conflict that hurts the relationship. Remember, we said with the wise person, when you talk about a problem or give feedback, it strengthens the relationship. The stronger or the wiser the person is. With the foolish person, it's going to hurt the relationship because they're not going to accept it. Immediate responses from a foolish person when you try to give feedback may be, and this isn't all inclusive, it's all your fault. You're the problem. It may be anger directed at you, acting like it's no big deal, deflecting to another topic. In a supervisor position, the foolish person needs more direct management than the wiser person. In other words, you're going to be micromanaging them more. The foolish person wants reality or truth to change for them instead of them changing to meet the demands of reality and truth. So I'm going to summarize these right quick, and then we're going to go back and talk a little bit more about the strategy with the foolish person. With the wise people or the wise person, talk to them, give them resources, and you will get a return. Remember, your relationship with them will be strengthened as you do that. With the foolish person, stop talking with them about problems. Instead, give them limits and consequences. We're going to circle back around to that in a minute. With evil people, go into protection mode. Stay away from them. So, with the foolish person, remember, they're not taking responsibility. They're not open to receiving feedback. And you want to end that pattern of them not taking responsibility. So that's number one. You want to end the pattern of them not taking responsibility. And two, set boundaries with yourself on what you allow yourself to be exposed to. And three, follow through with the consequences you establish. Consequences that will cause them pain of their choice to not listen. They need to feel the pain, not you, others, or the organization. And we're going to talk generally because this is another important key to all of this. And that is, I believe we're all on a continuum between being foolish and wise. And each of us have a default where we are. If we've been working on personal growth, then we're closer to wise than foolish. If we haven't been and we've just stayed in our own old mindsets, our own old beliefs, then we're going to be closer to foolish than wise. But I also want to say that even if I'm closer to the wise side of the continuum, any place that I have triggers, I have pain that I haven't processed, I'm going to go foolish. I'm not going to be able to accept feedback. I'm not going to be able to take ownership and responsibility. So look at yourself first and become aware. And you aren't going to do it all at once. That's not the way it works. But when you find yourself not wanting to take feedback, not wanting to take ownership, Say, what's the trigger here? What pain has not been processed? And how can I get it? Because you operate best from what's called a healthy heart or a healed heart. A healed heart is so much wiser than one that still has pain. A healed heart can take the feedback that's meant to be positive without it causing them to feel all bad and a failure. It does vary from day to day where we fall on that continuum. And this goes back to a lot of those first principles. It talks about, it depends where I am today, how well I'm taking care of myself in all areas, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. It depends on how secure I am and who I am. That love and value myself. Am I nourishing that? So my security comes from a deep part inside me? Or am I letting that go by the wayside? And looking at others and comparing myself to others and saying, oh, but they're so much smarter. They've accomplished so much more. I'm not going to be open to feedback if that's my mindset, if that's what I believe. And then, like we said before, it depends on how well we've processed those pains from the past. And no, I don't want you to sit down and just dig up all the pains from the day you were born up till now. But as one comes to the surface, recognize that it's causing problems. And then say, how can I process this pain in a healthy way? It may be through journaling. It may be through talking to a friend, maybe talking to a professional. But it's important to your emotional health and your physical health, your mental health, spiritual health, all of it, to process those pains. We talked about how you're going to react negatively if it's a trigger or a pain point for you, even though overall you're wise. And to give yourself grace for that. I don't want you to condemn yourself. I just want you to recognize it and say, I need to take care of this. But then I also want you to recognize that in other people too. They're going to have triggers. The person you're trying to give feedback to is going to have triggers. They're going to fall generally one way or the other, but even the ones that are wise are going to have triggers and pain points they haven't processed. So be aware of those, especially if it's a long-term relationship that you know really well. And recognize that they're going to have to be treated as a foolish person in those cases. And yes, you can create the vision of healing for them. You can encourage them to process that pain and work for that win-win with you. But in the meantime, they're not going to be able to take responsibility and be open to feedback. So it may be setting boundaries, creating that vision for what you see in the relationship, and all that goes along with that. That, in a nutshell, is the wise, the foolish, and the evil. And I'm going to give you that summary again. With wise people, talk to them, give them resources, and you will get a return on that relationship. With foolish people, stop talking with them about problems. Instead, give them limits and consequences. And then with evil people, go into protection mode. Stay away from them. And with that, that ends our session. If you do want to work with me more in different areas and in a more personal way, let me know. I'll put some information in here that you can use to find me. And I'll be glad to help you evaluate where you are in the relationship that is causing you the most pain, right?